In this video, we're going to talk about calculating portion size or number of portions. So one thing I want to remind you about is get in the habit of labeling EP and AP in your work. A lot of the mistakes that I see people make is that they're doing correct calculations, but then they're forgetting whether what they calculated was EP or AP. And so this is just an example of a great job that a former student did of just labeling everything as you go along. It doesn't take an extra minute to do that, but you're way more likely to get things right. So especially things like this where you see this is a book of yields number, and so you want to be really careful about knowing that in this case she's starting with EP and trying to go to AP, and so she's carefully labeled her conversion factor from the book of yields as AP over EP. That way she doesn't get it reversed, because she knows that when she does the dimensional analysis, she wants the EP to cancel and the AP to be left. And so she just treats that EP and AP like another dimension. She won't get it wrong. So I'd like to recommend that to you. So what we're working on in this video is based on this top formula. Probably makes total sense to you. In fact, all three of these probably do. This says total EP is portion size times number of portions. Of course, that's what the total amount you have to eat. And then we just change that formula a little bit for each of these. So that means if you want to find portion size, you take total EP and divide by the number of portions. Or to find the number of portions, you take total EP and divide by portion size. So here's an example problem. You purchase 6 heads of romaine lettuce. How many 3-ounce portions of chopped romaine lettuce can you get from these 6 heads? So there's a couple different methods that you can use to do this. Method 1 is using yield percent. So to start off with that one, we look at our AP unit. We see that it's 24 ounces per head. So practice reading those Book of Yields headings, because I think they can be very confusing. So this one is saying that it's 24 ounces per AP head. So that's what I wrote down here. Then because I have 6 heads, I take my 6 heads times 24 ounces AP per head, and I get 144 ounces AP. Notice I'm labeling AP. So now I want to go from AP to EP. That's what yield percent does for you. It lets you go between EP and AP. So the yield percent on romaine lettuce, for chopped romaine lettuce, is yield of 75%. So we set up our usual yield percent formula. The 144 ounces that we calculated is in the AP slot, 75% yield. Do our calculation, and we find out we've got 108 ounces EP labeled nicely. So then I go to my number of portions equals total EP divided by portion size formula. My EP is 108 ounces. The problem said we were doing 3-ounce portions, so that means I can get 36 portions. Just a little note on this. Of course, most of the time when you do something like this, you won't get a nice whole number. So if we got something like 36.5 portions, when we're dealing with portions, we're not going to round mathematically. So in other words, we wouldn't round 36.5 up to 37. We do what we call truncating. In other words, just chop off the decimal, because 36.5 portions means you don't have enough for a 37th portion. So you would just report it as 36 portions. So the second method is the Book of Yields has EP numbers right in it. So you just have to be really careful if you're going to do that to make sure you understand what you're reading. So if I look at the Book of Yields here, Wherever it says trimmed cleaned, that means EP. So trimmed clean ounce weight per AP unit is 18. And since the AP unit is heads, that means we get 18 ounces EP per head. So then we can just go straight to, we have 6 heads, we get 18 ounces EP per head. So we wind up with 108 ounces EP. Notice the labeling of EP there. And then we go back to our formula. Number of portions is total EP divided by portion size. Same as before, 108 ounces EP divided by 3 ounces per portion gives us 36 portions. So this one I want you to try out for yourself. So how many 4-ounce servings of green beans should you be able to make from a 50-pound case? So pause the video here for a minute or two and work this one out for yourself so you can check yourself here. So first I'm going to start with my 50-pound case and make it into ounces, because we were talking about how many 4-ounce servings we're going to be able to make, so we know we want to be working in ounces. So 50 pounds AP is just 800 ounces AP. So then I go to my yield percent, 88.1% yield, set up my yield percent formula. My 800 ounces AP goes in the bottom. Calculate the EP, I get 704.8 ounces EP. And then I go to my number of portions formula. Number of portions is total EP divided by portion size, and I get 176 servings. So now what if we'd ask something slightly different? So if you wanted to make 150 servings of green beans from that same 50-pound case, what size should each portion be? Well, we do all the same calculations to get our EP. These are just the same calculations as I already showed you. So we wind up that same 704.8 ounce EP number. And then we just use the formula portion size is total EP divided by number of portions. And so we get each portion will be 4.7 ounces.